Hello, I. So, I'm here to dismantle any beliefs, any fears that you may have when it comes to your connection to God. Okay? Because these holy books, these systems, these operations that put out these laws and told you, convinced you, they convinced you that these are the words of God. I'm here to tell you that it's pure BS, and all of those words, all of those books written were literally created to keep you in a system so that they're easily able to control you, right? Because if you don't realize that you already have a direct connection to God because you are God, you are a reflection of God, you are an expression of God, then you are always going to be searching for God through their means, through their ways, meaning you will follow their rules, follow their commandments, follow their laws, and ignore your intuition, ignore your gut feeling, ignore your emotions, ignore the things that you truly desire. And what that actually does is it goes against why we're here in the first place. We are here to experience ourselves. We are here to express ourselves as God. We are I and I's I. That's why I say I and I, because it's I and I, right? So we are told that God in these holy books exists because he gives us laws and punishes and blesses and has human emotions and reactions. And most importantly, most religions claim him to be male in gender, right? And give God male pronouns. Now, if that alone, sometimes when I speak to religious people, I'm unsure if they actually read the scriptures, if they really read them, if they truly read them, or if they're just following something just because, their parents believed it, or because of community, if they don't want to be shunned, etc., etc., or if it's just simply the fear of hell. That fear alone, which I feel like is in a lot of people, because a lot of people don't understand death, a lot of people don't understand even birth, right? So because of that concept, it makes you, because of the fear of death and what happens next, it then makes you attach yourself to these belief systems that help you feel like you've got more control, right? Because if you fear death and you fear what happens next, but then you're told, hey, don't worry, if you follow these laws and you follow these commandments, then I promise you, you'll be saved, and then you'll always be eternally in heaven while others perish in hell burning. Which is crazy to me, because a lot of people say that they're Christian or Muslim or these religions, but they don't even follow the commandments in the scriptures to the T either. So what is it really? Are you really fearful of hell? And even if you are following all the commandments, all the laws, if you are really one of those impossibly rare ones, right? Then how would you feel, that your God would punish people that don't believe in the same religion as you, your loved ones, your family members, etc., and you know them not to be bad people? Or do you just simply assume because they're not part of your religion, they're automatically bad? Even though you might be literally sharing a house with one of them, or even in your mother's roof, she's paying the bills, looking after you, but she doesn't believe in the same religion as you or whatever, so all of a sudden she's condemned to hell. Or your child has grown up, has realized that their identity doesn't fit with your religion, and they've got their own identity, their own belief system. So do you believe your child deserves to perish in hell forever? Is that truly what you believe your God is like? Such a vengeful, judgmental being. Doesn't that just sound like another human being? Does that really sound like the Almighty, the Creator, the all of all? Does that really? However, for their God to exist, okay, it would also mean he can die. Because anything that exists must change at one point or another. So that's why I say, like, they're false gods in their in their holy books, in the Quran. All of those are false gods. And do you know why? Because those gods and their rules and their laws, eventually, what do? They die out. You think Christianity, Muslim, and all of that stuff, they were the first religions? Of course not, I know. But just like those religions were created and their gods within them, they can also die and cease to exist. When what happens? What would be required for those religions to die and their gods to die with them? Non-believers. As soon as people aren't believing, or there's not enough people believing, their gods die. If it's 100 years from now or 1,000 years and nobody knows or even understands why people believed in Allah or God or the people in the Bible and all of this stuff, if people are just like, that's so crazy, that's funny to me, which is what's happening now, eventually those gods will die. They will no longer have power because people aren't feeding them with power. All right. So the moment something is, it already is caught in motion, therefore has duality, e.g., up implies down, birth implies death, form implies formless. And what do I mean by that? When they say that their God in their Bible exists, that already means that it can cease to exist. Because if something can exist, then it can cease to exist. Which is why I say the true God doesn't actually exist. Not in the sense of our existence, not in the same sense as the existence of the gods in these holy scriptures as well. It's all so-called holy scriptures, right? That's why their gods can die, because their gods require belief. Why do you think they mass marketed everything? Why do you think they killed people, millions of people, to believe in the stuff they believed in? Why do you think they tried so much within their powers to make sure that even through the colonization of African countries and all these other countries as well, why do you think it was so important for them to make sure that they brought their gods with them and made sure that they had more and more believers? Because they realized the more believers that they have within their God is the more believers, more power that they have to be able to control the masses, right? If you've got mass people believing in your religion, in your God, in your systems, your beliefs, your laws, your prayers, your etc., what does that incur, right? Then that means that you're able to control them, because whatever you write down and you said is God's word, those masses are going to believe in it, right? And remember, the whole thing of this game and the people that want to control it and the people that want to keep us asleep, their whole thing is mass control. Whether it's through distractions, whether it's through our belief systems, etc., all they want is control over us, is in control over us, so we don't have our own autonomy, we don't believe in our own intuition, and therefore we aren't creating reality for ourselves. Because once we all start creating reality for ourselves, we tap out of their reality, which is the matrix system, which is what they control, and then they have nobody, and without bodies, there's no power, because bodies, it's our attention to things that create the energy that creates reality. So it's not even really about money or this or that or materialistic things or no, it's our attention, our energy, our awareness, where our focus is. Because just like a game, when you're within the game, right, and you're playing that game, only you know how the buildings just start popping up as you're walking along and the buildings start popping up? It's that your awareness in the game that's creating those buildings to pop up, because now you're there, so your awareness is bringing attention to it, so those buildings are manifesting. It's just like in reality, right? So if your awareness or attention isn't on something, it cannot manifest in real life. So if they've got all of us in mass numbers focused, hyper-focused on Palestine, hyper-focused on war, death, famine, hyper-focused on disease, poverty, depression, hyper-focused on just all of these negative things, what does it do? What does it create more of? That creates more of that same reality. But if all of us are individually focused and we're focused on our inner world and trying to perfect our inner world in order for it to reflect back to us, and we're just creating more and more beauty, what happens to them? They cease to exist. The matrix ceases to exist, and the matrix does not want to cease to exist. It wants to thrive and what? Have more bodies to it, have more power, have more energy, have more awareness, feeding it into reality. Now, God as the pure I, yeah, in the I am. So God, the true God, the one the I before the I am, yeah, the I before the I am, is outside of time, space, motion, change, and duality. So therefore, God must be outside of experience, right? Because what by experience I mean this God, this game, this realm, right? Because experience equals subject plus object plus relationship, all right? And God is all of that before they split, because everything exists within God. Do you get it? So when God separated from the I am, when God separated from himself and reflected back and said, and I hate that I use he because we've been programmed so much to say he. But when God separated themselves and said, I want to know who I is, who am I, right? God had to separate in order to experience oneness, in order to experience themselves. So, in that sense, God is outside the game. God is not caught in any loop, not reacting, not seeking, and not becoming. So, the God before, so obviously, for God to say, who am I? Yeah, there would be the I that's asking, right? So then the I that reflects back, I am this. So we are the I ams reflecting back to God, who is asking, who am I? And then we say, I am Nikki, I'm funny, I'm bubbly, I'm all of this stuff. And then you say, I am this person, I am this, and then I'm that, right? All of those reflections back. However, within that separation is what creates God to be able to experience themselves in the first place. Because if God doesn't separate them, if God didn't separate themselves, right, then it wouldn't have no how can I say it? There wouldn't be nothing to compare itself or contrast itself to, which is why this whole world is made up of ups, downs, lefts, rights. It's always contrasting in order to know, if I am this, who am I not? I need to know who I am not to know who I am. I need to know who I am to know who I am not. All right? So, however, even though God exists outside of the game, yeah, if God created experiences, then God experiences also, which means to create the opportunity for experience is to also embed yourself within experience. You cannot say, I'm going to create a realm of existence. And because once you say, I'm creating a realm of existence, I want to know who I am, then you are already experiencing from that moment, you are already experiencing yourself, asking yourself that question. Therefore, you're already experiencing experiences. Therefore, God cannot separate. Just like God is outside of the game, God actually can't separate themselves from the experience of within the game, because as soon as they ask that question, they are now experiencing what happens when they ask that question. So it's God's also outside of the game, but also within the game, and within the game through through I and I. All right. So even though God does exist outside of the game, God is also the totality of what unfolds within the game, because nothing, no action, no being, nothing can be apart from source. So God is simultaneously the player, so us, yeah, the game, and the silence that watches it all. Do you see that? So we're all connected, even though we love to see ourselves as separate and all of this stuff, but this whole thing of separation, right, is only created to create reality. Without separation, then we won't have any reality, because then we'll just be oneness. But we must separate, or have the illusion, because remember, this is all fake. We have the illusion of separation, because even though we look at things as if they're solid, I'm sat here, you are watching me right now, and you feel like, oh, I'm watching her on a phone, or I'm watching her on a TV, etc., etc. But in reality, it's all going on inside your head. All of this, everything that we are projecting outside, is going on inside our head. So, just like a dreamer is not the dream, yet the dream can't exist without them. And also every character and scene, including the background, is the dreamer as well. So I've spoken about this plenty times before. When you're in a dream, the dream is yours, right? Because you are the dreamer. However, when you're in the dream, you're playing a role, your character, whatever. You've got your little avatar suit on. Yeah, you've got your body. And then all the characters within the game, it's like they're separate from you, right? You're not even recognizing the fact that you're projecting them, that they are part of your consciousness, because you are experiencing the self, the separation between you and the other characters within the dream. Just like when it comes to the ground you're walking on, or the sea that you're seeing, or the smells, the sights, everything, the things that you're touching within the dream, all of that is simply you. And how is that you? How can you be like, oh, how is it me? Well, because it's all within your dream, within your mind. So everything within that dream, every single thing, including the dream itself, is you, just like in reality, right? So God is dreaming that God is dreaming that they're playing all these different characters within this realm, okay? Within the realm, but yet God is the dream. God is the realm itself, so Earth, and God is also the players within Earth, all right? God is also the wind, the air, the sea, everything, yeah? Every breath, movement, thought, death, or renewal is just God experiencing God through veils of forgetfulness, remembrance, pain, joy, shadow, and light. We are God, okay? But we are not the totality of God. And this is extremely important because people be like, oh, so what are you saying? You're God. You think you're God. You think you're God. That's blasphemy. That's blasphemy. Like, no. We are the expressions of God. Our singular point. So if you think of like a prism, for instance, we are that single angle, right, of the prism of God. But we aren't the totality of God. But we are a part of God. But there's God in the totality, and then there's us. And this is the funniest thing is people are so afraid of death and all of this stuff or whatever. But death, true death, not the sense of your body dying, because your body decaying and all of this stuff doesn't mean death. And if it really did mean death, then how comes in our dreams, when you go to sleep and your body's still here, all of a sudden you have another body when you're in your dream mode? And you can feel and you can sense things exactly as reality in the dream mode as it is for you here, to the point where when you wake up here, you can come back with your emotions of here as well. Yeah. So when it comes to this body dying, that's nothing, right? But your awareness, it's if as long as you are aware of me, as long as there is an I, as long as there's a me, as long as there's a you, then you are aware and you are alive. That's it. You will never have awareness of death. Why? Because death will simply mean returning to oneness. And that returning to oneness means you will have no self-awareness. Even when they say, oh, death is like when you meditate and all of this stuff, it's a transitioning phase, yes, right? But at the end of the day, even in your meditation, you still have an awareness of yourself meditating, right? Which you still have an awareness of self. So as long as you have an awareness of self, there is no death. There is no death. There can be an ego death, right? But it won't be an ego death in the truest sense of the truest sense, because you still have a self. Until that self is non-existence, that would be the true real death. But that also isn't actually death, because you're simply returning back to oneness. So there is no such thing as death for us. We're either part of the all, so the oneness, or we are an expression of the all in singular and in our awareness. But there is no death. There's just the in-between, the jump. And I genuinely do believe that we will never be forced to return to oneness until we are ready, until our singular has experienced all we feel like we would like to experience and wants to return back to oneness, right? Maybe, the guy's gone through something so traumatic, or is just over the games, overplaying, etc., whatever I desires, and then I returns to oneness. But I also do truly believe that I can return to oneness and come back out of oneness to decide to play again, right? And I believe that because, remember, this whole time-space reality thing is only in this realm, right? The whole time-space thing doesn't actually exist. So even when, it's funny because even if you go back and return to oneness because you no longer want to experience no more, you will still be experiencing from oneness, because remember, God is the one experiencing all of this anyway, through us. So, catch 22. Yeah. So we are God, but we are not the totality of God. We are a localized angle of God's infinite prism. But not just us, but so is the tree, a bird, the galaxy, silence. We cannot separate God from the expressions of God, which is us. All right? The things we know in this reality It's just labels we have created within the dream. So obviously I'll say, so the things that we're so sure of, right? So I can say, my name is Nikki, I live in London, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a partner, reel off, reel off, reel off. But at the end of the day, that isn't actually me. That's just the labels I've placed on myself. These are my storylines, my script. But it's not actually me, the truest me. In fact, the truest me could be living multiple dimensions, multiple lives across that multiple dimensions. Now, so for instance, I gave an example here, yeah? So for instance, say you're playing a game and within the game you have selected your avatar, right? And what arena you want to play in. When your avatar is doing its little introduction and telling its background story, it isn't actually you that's playing the game. But within the game and all the NPCs, etc., they are only aware of the avatar you and its background and stories. But the players within the game aren't aware of the you playing the game or the person behind the avatar. So, like I said, when you're in the game, yeah, and you have the avatar, and you know, it usually does that introduction thing. There's, oh, this and this happened, and it gives you a name, and that's your name in the game, all of this stuff, and then you meet your other characters and players and blah blah blah. Now, if we're putting that into reality now, those other characters and those other people, they're thinking whatever version of you in the game, your avatar, is you. Your background story is you. The movements you make is you. But in reality, is it you? No, because there's a you, the real you. Well, not even really the real you, but the reality you, right? That's actually playing the game. So that would be the real you to the people within the game, compared to the avatar you within the game. But those people within the game, let's say even if you was playing with multiple players or whatever, blah blah blah. Of course, we all know that it's people playing the game. But say they weren't aware, right? Say they weren't aware that it was another person and they thought it was just a computer, whatever, all of this stuff, yeah? Say you was able to go on computer mode and really and truly you're not on computer mode, you're actually playing it. That person wouldn't know that there's somebody else playing behind it because all it knows is, well, that person's on computer mode, right? So it's just exactly like that. So in reality, we all put all these faces, we play these characters, etc., etc., and we label ourselves as teachers, doctors, mothers, fathers, all of that stuff. But that isn't actually you. You are much more than that. You are much more than any label that you can place on yourself. I just want to make sure this is recording. Okay, it is, because I get so nervous sometimes. All right. So the you that doesn't have a name, the I before the I am, is the one that never changes and always is. That is God within you experiencing life as separate from itself. Okay? So this is the dream of the dreamer who forgot they were dreaming just to feel it all. In order for all of this to feel real, I had to create separation from oneself. Because otherwise, how is it real? And with the separation, I had to really, that's why we have such strong individual I ams, right? And that's why humans are at the level of awareness that they are compared to all other beings on this earth, right? Physical beings, is because of the fact that we have such a strong self-awareness. But then it's also our hindrance, right? Because animals and stuff like that, some of them are aware of themselves or whatever, but they're not aware of themselves how we are aware of ourselves, not to the same extent. But because we feel that separation so much, right? That illusion can then also become a trap. Because within that separation, we're not acting as if that person has wronged me and they're completely separate from me, or I hate that person because they're completely different from me. They come from a different background, a different culture, have different beliefs, etc., etc. But in reality, we're all one, right? But the strong I am within us creates us to want to stick to people that are similar to us and shun those that seem the most contrasting to us, right? Now, even in the deepest pain, the best joy, love, betrayal, crimes, orgasms, grief, and the beliefs we'll die for, all these emotions are so real in a dream, just like your night dreams, all right? So Even, for instance, in your night dreams, right, you can be attacked, right? In your nightmares, you can be attacked by somebody. And you're thinking, oh my God, the person's attacking me. But really and truly, it's you. Because remember, I told you, it's your dream, therefore it's all you. But it's you attacking you. So even in reality, none of us in this reality, none of us is really harming each other. None of us is really harming each other. Because even if you can harm my physical body, my flesh, the Nikki as I, you can't harm I and I. You can't harm the I within I. You cannot. That's why I truly believe that it doesn't make sense to me why people believe that in the God of the Bibles and the Quran and all this stuff, because it's like they're so vengeful, they're so judgmental, they're so contradictory, right? But if the truest God truly was as judgmental, as contradictory, and really vengeful and all of this stuff, this game would not still be running, bro. This game would not still be running. We'll be seeing people getting slaughtered on a random thing. But what they say to you, oh no, that was just back in the day. Now God decided he's never going to create floods again. I don't think that God in Enoch's Bible would stick to his promise of never flooding people again, because the way he's moving in that Bible seems to me, if he really could, he would do it again. But the reason why he never doesn't do it again, whatever, is because it's not him. That God does not exist. That vengeful, judgmental God does not exist. So, at the end of the day, the true you was never touched. However, you're also the one doing the touching. So even though you're never harmed in this reality or a dream, you are still actually the one doing the harming. And as mind-fucking as that is, it's the truth. Because remember this, we are all one. And remember, you're creating your very own reality. Nothing is happening to you. Everything is happening through you. Yeah? So, at the end of the day, when someone attacks you, the true you was never attacked, but you may feel it. And the person doing the attacking is also you. Just another version of the true you. Because nothing exists outside of God. Therefore, it is God interacting with God within a deep amnesia. So it can feel real. Separation creates reality. Without separation, reality would cease to exist. God had to separate themselves to experience themselves as experience, as previously mentioned, requires a subject, object, and relationship. For experience to exist, it requires a subject, an object, and a relationship to that subject and object. Okay? So another wild paradox is everything matters because it's happening to you. Nothing matters because it's happening for you. Yeah, that's a paradox. And on top of that, you're not even the you experiencing it all. So you are the observer that jumped in the bodysuit, right? And was given a name to play this round. This is why the true God is loving, vast, unbothered, and curious. And that's why God, the true God, allows us to experience life without no judgment. It's not like, oh, when you do something bad or whatever, then all of a sudden God's there like, off with his head. But who does that sound like? The gods of the scriptures, the gods with the Bibles. But who does that also sound like? The kings and governments people and the lawmakers and all these people running the matrix. Yeah? Reality is only real because we feel it. The moment we experience something as real, it is the moment we experience something, it is real to us as the experiencer. Our feelings, sensations, thoughts, and reactions give it texture. That's why even in a nightmare, we can wake up and be trembling with fear or sad with tears because our body cannot tell the difference. Once we're immersed in any reality, whether it's the dream, whether it's the dream realm, whether it's reality, physical reality, whatever our awareness, the inner eye, is concentrated on, makes it reality. That's why our body can't tell the difference. That's why they talk about manifestation and visualization and how much your emotions actually control your reality, because your emotions are what's causing your vibration, and your vibrations are what causing your reality to be reflected back to you. And that's why it's so important. It's not important about changing your outside world to change your inner world. What's actually important is changing your inner world to change your outside world. because everything that seems to be outside of you is actually within you. It's within you, and you're projecting it outwards, which is why even when it comes to the eyes, right? And we think, oh, you know, our eyes are the one that's seeing things and all this stuff. No, it's our mind that actually sees, which is crazy. So our mind, the images are in our mind, and then it's just reflected back through the eyes, which is wild, right? Because we think that it's just, we had to create these parameters in order to make this thing be real. Because otherwise we wouldn't experience the real physicality of things if we didn't lie to ourselves so much, or delusion ourselves so much to believe that everything in this physical is real and is separate from us. We had to do that to create the contrast, so we're able to evolve as souls to be able to experience. So the illusion, however, isn't the feeling, right? The illusion is believing that feeling is all there is. So it's not the so it's not to say that what you're feeling is fake, or it's not real, whatever. Bro, it's real. If I burn you right now, you'll feel it. But the problem is when we believe that in that pain of you burning, that's all there is. And why do you think there's some people that can walk across fire, or can do the maddest things, put thingies through themselves or whatever, and then they're just like, because they've been able to access that point where they can separate themselves from what their physical body is going through and remain in their inner body, which is always being untouched, which is always being unharmed. So God is not watching, yeah? God is dreaming. Even though these holy books would love to convince us that God is sitting high and mighty on a throne somewhere judging us, this is not the case, okay? This is a very humanistic personality trait. God is actually the dreamer, dreaming through infinite lenses, some awake, some lost, some healing, some angry, and others laughing. Just to spin off quickly, it's crazy because I found out that they've been doing studies about people with the like no ability for inner thoughts, like they don't have inner dialogue, and other people that can't like imagine themselves like in past or present, like past or future, or they just have no like sense of imagination, yeah, which is crazy to me. And apparently, like, there really is these new science studies that are coming out that are basically proving that not all of the 8 billion people that we think are on this planet are all conscious and aware like we are. That there's actually literally for real NPCs. Like, it's not even just a conspiracy theory, like, which is mind-blowing, because this is something that I came across during lockdown when I was just looking around, and I'm like, bruh, hold on a minute. And I swear I could just feel and see NPCs from a mile off. And I was like, this is and I had this sense of knowing that the world is so much less populated than they like to tell us and confuse us about. And if you realize, even online, they like to exaggerate the numbers of users on their platforms and all of these stuff, because there's so many bot accounts, and they try to make them real by commenting and all of these stuff, but there's so many fake bot accounts, so much fake interactions, etc. But that's why it's like important for us people that are so interested in like waking up ourselves and waking up others, to not waste our time like replying to certain people, trying to force certain people to wake up, whatever, because some of them literally cannot wake up because they weren't designed to wake up. They were simply there to just fill in spaces, fill in the gaps, make it look like a crowded room. Anyway, I sidetracked a little bit there. So God never said let there be light, but rather became the light to know the light. Ooh-wee. Ooh-wee. You feel me? Yeah? Because with God is, so God can just be, right? But God did an amazing thing and did what? Gave us image-like image-like qualities of God, meaning that we can dream, we can manifest things, so we can speak things into existence through our tongue. Our tongue is very powerful. Yeah. So this is the paradox. You are not God, but you are also only God in form. Do you hear that? So you aren't God, but at the end of the day, you are only God, but in form sense. And that's the one of the maddest paradoxes about all of this. Yep. So why should we care to be good if it's all a game, right? Which is scary that I know some people would generally, but I feel like those people that would, if they truly knew the truth of that this is all a game, if that was that would be their heart already. If that's already in your heart to be a bad mind, malicious person because you realize that there is no heaven or hell ever, I already know that you was already doing bad mind, evil things anyway. I know that for a fact, whether you was doing it or hiding or whatever. But true, good-hearted, honest people you don't need a heaven or hell to exist for you to know to do right by others and to do right by yourself, man. Jesus Christ. Just like, I feel like, do you really need punishment or something to know that it's not good to rape, to know that it's not good to murder? You know what I mean? All of this stuff, like, come on, like, you should just know. You should just know, right? So when you realize we are all one, and it's not because someone is watching and judging you from above, but because you are watching from behind your own eyes, that's the true reason. Like, you shouldn't need there to be this person above you that's judging you and will send you to hell, all of this stuff. It should be just because now that you know that there is the truest you behind your eyes, right? What do you want to really be reflecting back at them? Because remember, you're reflecting your own heart, and your own soul. That's why you can't run away from karma. Karma has nothing to do with punishment, I. It's nothing to do with punishment or judgment. It's simply the fact that, remember, everything is within your mind, right? Everything is within your mind, and you cannot do harm unto others, I, without harm being reflected back onto you. Because we are all reflections of each other, I. So you can't miss it. So even though, like, you might think, oh, but some people do evil and they never get, bro, you're not in their lives. You don't know what they're going through. You might see them, they're rich, living their best lives or whatever, but have they got truest love? And you might never know, but the one thing that they've truly desired the most in their life was true love. And they've not been able to find that. And why have they not been able to find that? Because it's their karma for doing harm unto others. So you might see somebody rich like Donald Trump and be thinking, oh my God, but this guy is rich. He's living his best life. But you don't know what he's going through. You don't know what struggles he's going through and what his shadows are like. And he must have big, huge shadows, because somebody that is truly fulfilled in life and happy and etc. and loving, they wouldn't cause harm unto others like that. And you need to also remember that everybody's on their different level of awareness and conscious levels. Right? So you might be super aware and super conscious. Somebody else might be playing at a lower level and they're just not as aware. They're just not as aware of how their actions are affecting those around them, or they just, do you understand, not caring. Yeah? So this is why it's important, all right, for us to wake up and dream consciously, because the world is a dream. The world is a dream, I. But if the world is a dream, whose dream are we in right now? Are we in the colonizer's dream, the matrix dream, the algorithm's dream now with all of this AI and stuff? Whose dream are we in? Or are you in your soul's dream? Are you living your soul's dream? Are you creating your own dream within this? Like, do you understand what I'm saying to you? Instead of playing to somebody else's game and playing by somebody else's rules, which is exactly what religion's all about. Playing by somebody else's rules that they've dictated to you are the one and final rules, instead of you going within yourself and finding out what rules you want to play by. What rules resonate with you. Because you might believe in this religion that tells you it's bad to be gay, but all you came down to do is experience gayness. But now, because your religion's told you it's wrong, because your religion has shunned you for it, now you're going to subconsciously, in your shadow form, find out ways to act out what you truly want to do. Whether that's behind closed doors and then shunning yourself and shaming yourself for it, or by abusing people with less power than you and doing it behind closed doors as well, or by simply going on smear campaigns and you know, demonizing people that are living the lives, the true life that you want to be living instead. And then you die and you realize that shit, hell wasn't even there, and there's no such thing as heaven or hell. And you incarnate and you say, I want to do this again, and this time I'm going to do it really well, and this time I'm going to live myself for me, and this time I'm going to come down and I'm going to be me, by my truest me, and I'm not going to allow other powers to interfere with my true desires, etc. Then you were born, and then you pick up that scripture once again. Somehow that scripture finds you, and now you're religious again, and then you still haven't got to experience what you truly came down to experience, and then you reincarnate again. That's why it's so important, I, to live the individual lives that you want to live, and to go by your intuition and your desires and your wants. Forget what other people, because people are going to scream and tell you a bunch of different rules, a bunch of different laws, I. But there is no truth but the one truth. Woo! There is no truth but the one truth. And what is that one truth, I? That we are all one. And we are all part of the one. And that is the truest of truth. Nothing exists without that. That is the truest of truths. Everything else is subjective. Everything else is subjective. Anywho, I'm going to leave it here. And I hope you enjoyed this video today. Yeah? Show me some love. Show me some support. Like, comment, share, subscribe. All that good. You know, shall we have a lovely one, guys?